gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The session is about to start. Please take your seats. Thank you.
And a wonderful good morning from my part. My name is Anna Stürgkh. I'm an MEP for NEOS, the hosting party. And since we are already running 10 minutes late, but I hear it's because there was quite a good party last night, so at least it's a good reason we're running late. So wonderful good morning to this high-level debate. I'm so honored to be hosting it and to be moderating it. But you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from our ministers, from our Prime Minister, from our Deputy Chair of the Parliament. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Mr. Prime Minister, Kristen Michal, to the floor to give us a little bit of an introduction and speech to look at what Europe is facing right now and what the world is facing right now. Everything that's been discussed yesterday, not just in the starting of our Congress, but every session since. How do we tackle what is ahead of us? Mr. Prime Minister, if I can ask you to take the floor. Thank you very much.
So, we'll adjust them. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is good to see so many people here who still believe in the liberal European dream. Because according to the prophets of doom, the dream should have collapsed many times already. The financial crisis, Brexit, pandemic, Russian energy blackmail. Each time we heard the same prediction: Europe would, shall fall apart. It did not. Then came Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine. Many believed this would finally end the liberal European project. And instead, it reminded us why it matters. Because liberal Europe steps up. It protects freedom, it defends democracy, and it delivers for its citizens and for those who aspire to become part of our community. Ukraine is the clearest example. And this is not only a war against Ukraine, it's a war against Europe we have built together. Putin wanted to break Ukraine and divide Europe. Instead, now he cannot even hold a military parade without Ukraine's permission. Yeah. So Europe became more united, and we, everybody here, supported Ukraine's defense. We welcomed refugees, and we imposed sanctions on Russia, and they work. There's no healthy part of Russia's economy anymore, and we must keep that pressure up. Our next step is enlargement. Ukraine belongs to Europe. So do Moldova, Montenegro, and others. This is not a charity also. It's in Europe's own strategic interests, and larger Europe is stronger Europe. Russia's aggression has also reminded us that the liberal European project has future only if it can defend itself. Estonia invests more than 5% of GDP in defense. Across Europe, defense spending is rising. But money alone is not enough. Modern wars are won by innovation, production, and speed. In Estonia, we combine defense with digital thinking and startup mindset. Next challenge is AI. Some say that Europe has already lost. The US invests more, China invests more. I do not believe that. The liberal answer is not fear, it's confidence. Not banning or over-regulating new technologies before they grow, but giving people the skills to use them, better education, better digital skills. Many people worry that AI will take the jobs or change societies beyond recognition. These are understandable concerns. And it is the responsibility of leaders, also in this room, and governments to help people adapt. The key is to protect critical mindset. AI should never become a substitute for own thinking. In Estonia, we are bringing AI into our schools, not to think instead of the students, but to help them think better. Our AI tools guide pupils towards solutions. They encourage learning. They do not write essays for them. And Europe must step up again. AI is not only about technology, it is about the future of our economy, jobs, and growth. Europe must invest in education, research, and digital skills. AI needs investment, yet we still have not completed the Capital Markets Union to unlock investments at the scale we need. We speak about competitiveness. Now we must deliver. Europe cannot afford strategic dependencies. Whether it is advanced AI models or critical rare earths chip production, dependence creates vulnerabilities. And in Estonia, we have opened a new production plant for advanced industrial magnets. This is a critical component from electric vehicles to wind turbines. The plant strengthens European supply chains, and it reduces critical dependencies and strengthens European competitiveness. That is what liberal reform means today: completing the single market, building the Capital Markets Union, expanding the clean energy, reducing critical dependencies. They will determine whether Europe leads in AI, whether we create the jobs of tomorrow, whether our economies grow. The liberal European project has faced one crisis after another. Each time we were told this was the end. Each time Europe stepped up. I believe it will do so again with us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And actually, can I ask you to come straight back up? Because we will be able to ask you some follow-up questions on what you've just told us about. Yes, please just here. But in order to have a discussion, I think there should be some more voices on this stage with us. So let me please hear a very warm welcome from this room to our Minister of Foreign Affairs from Romania, Oana Țoiu. Can I please ask you to join us on stage? You want to sit? You okay to sit? Yeah. Deputy Chair of the Ukrainian Parliament and party leader of Servants to the People, Oleksandr, and now I'm trying to Korniyenko. Get the right pronunciation. And last but definitely not least, our Minister of European Affairs and Defence, good combination, Byrne from Ireland. Thank you so much. So I'll start with just a round of questions to each of the panelists so we get a little bit of an insight as to how you think and who you are. So maybe let me start with Romania, because we've heard quite a lot about Romania in the last few months, and obviously one of the biggest headlines when it comes to European security and defense came from Romania when the Russian drone, well, I would say attacked, but I guess I'm more free with my words than a minister is. But you yourself have been very vocal also about the role that Romania plays. I know in Kiel at the security conference you spoke about the importance of the Black Sea. So what role can Romania play in particular here when it comes to having that specific positioning as well as a country that it kind of, you know, combines the Balkans, the Black Sea, Ukraine, obviously. So what is the specific role you think that Romania can play in bringing those regions together?
So thank you. Thank you for the question. I've actually, in your question, it's a lot of the answer of where Romania is positioned, not just in terms of geography, but in terms of how we are contributing. And yes, we're going to start from security because that is the main concern. But as it is quite clear now, security is connected with economic development, is connected with how societies perceive the quality of their democracies, the quality of their leadership. And in our case, we do hold the responsibility to protect the border. We have the longest border with the war, and here I have to say this very clearly, that we are aware that Ukraine's effort, Ukraine's resilience is also a direct contribution to our security, to the security of Europe, and that is why it's a strategic prerogative. It's in our strategic interest collectively that we support that resilience, that we do together the steps towards peace. And in that sense, from Romania's perspective, it was also great news that the negotiation clusters for joining the European Union have been, the first negotiation cluster has been opened. But back to that, we have the responsibility to protect the border. We have the longest border with the war, and it's not just our border, it's the European Union border, the allied NATO territory border, the Schengen border. And I'm referring to this in the sense of security concerns, but also how is it that we do protect the connectivity infrastructure. For example, the Constanța Harbor, and you've mentioned Black Sea, and this is something clearly essential for Europe in connection with South Caucasus, Asia, Middle East, but also as it happens with Romania, as it happens with our neighbors, every challenge that we face puts us in a position to design solutions for that, and there are moments in time where those solutions are relevant to the world. Specifically, what we've managed on the Black Sea, on the solidarity lanes that allowed the flow of grain to reach Africa and countries that were importers, and our demining operations together with Bulgaria, Turkey, Ukraine are now actually relevant in all the conversations we're having about the Middle East and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz and the coalition to reopen the strait, and the conversations with France, UK, the coalition led by the State Department. In all of those, the experience that we have gained at the Black Sea has become relevant on types of solutions and ideas that can be applied in other parts of the world. As well, for example, what we have seen more clearly in the last 4 years is we have seen Russia use energy as a weapon of war in a way. And that has been the case for Ukraine, that has been the case for Republic of Moldova, where they tried before elections to use energy prices to affect the role of democracy in a way. And they have failed spectacularly at that. But because we were willing to help collectively through the European Union as neighbors, and why do I mention that is because we've looked at energy through time as an essential part of competitiveness and pricing, big household or economy. We've looked at it from an environment perspective, and rightfully so, but I think now we have a better understanding of its geopolitical role. And in Romania's case, for example, we are now the #1 natural gas producers inside the European Union, but the projects we have at the Black Sea, such as Neptune Deep, for example, are going to increase that resource by 80%. I'm having next week the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Canada, Anita Anand, visit before the NATO summit, and one of the reasons is what we do together in nuclear energy. And I'm mentioning that because I think if we manage together to have a better pool of resources, better resources in terms of affordable, environment-friendly energy. That's going to allow us not just to increase the competitiveness we need and the stronger single market and the stronger role and reach for our products, but it's also going to enable us the strategic autonomy that we need, that the Prime Minister has mentioned in the initial remarks, for us as a continent, but also in support of our neighbors and the region.
Thank you so much. I think those were some very important messages, and I think that leads us very beautifully to you, Oleksandr, if that's all right. And if you don't mind, I don't always have the opportunity to talk to the Deputy Chair of Parliament of Ukraine, so let me take this moment to thank you for your service, you and your entire country. Because it's so very clear that you aren't just fighting for yourself, and Oana, you just said it, you're fighting for everything we stand for as Europeans, as liberals in particular, for our way of life, for our freedom, and for our security. So apart from the military support, obviously, what would you say is a takeaway from the last 4 years? On the one hand, one that Ukraine has learned about its partnership with Europe, but also what European political leaders can learn from Ukraine.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Romania, Estonia, Ireland. We have huge hopes for next half of year with you, but we know that it's, you know, best moment for your presidency. Yes. What I want to start with, you were right that you know, liberals' values. As for me, it's the most vulnerable values now in this war because of Russia ideological position. We all know what they start to forbid first. It's Ukrainians, NGO, free media, and minorities. And they nominated, for example, LGBT minority like terrorist organization. What is it? It's about ideology, not about, you know, some technical things. And while we continue to discuss about what Russians do on our land for these 4 years, they violate human rights, they violate human lives. Yesterday they attacked by guided aviabomb center of Sumy city. You know, 5 people killed, a lot of injuries. Center of city. What's the military, you know, places here? It's a center square, like, you know, like in Vienna, like in any European city. That's why, yes, we as liberals, it's my mention that we need to be more attentionable to this war and to this vision of this war, because it's, you know, very dangerously for liberal ideas, first of all, any autocrat's ideas, but this exactly. What I want to share, what we can learn, everyone, from this, you will never have good time to start reforms, you know. You will never get good time to start defense reform. You know, let's start yesterday, and let's start 1 month ago about it. I know that, for example, in EP, Renew in one of the most, how would say, busy and quickly party fraction, because we all know what is going on in biggest fractions. A lot of countries, discussions, position, parties, procedure. And while we had example with SAFE, that discussed about 1 year, oh guys, while we discussed about 1 year how to build drone, it will be, you know, fail totally. Russia, Renew, for example, they maintains of ruling of shaheds, it frequencies this protection from anti-drone warfare and so on every 2 months. Every 2 months we have exactly new shaheds in terms of operation. Not in terms of form and physical condition, but in terms of how they fly. Yesterday attack, today ghost attack in Kyiv, for example, we had 25% of jet shaheds. Jet shaheds, it's small missile, but it's cheaper than missile 10 times. It's flying very fast. It's flying very, from the border with Russia to Kyiv, 140 kilometers in Chernigiv region. This jet flying in 5 minutes to center of Kyiv. You know. And next stage of war, we all understand that we need to deal with it. That's why, for example, now we discuss how to deal with this threat, new threat. And let me be clear, in 1-2 months we will have strong answer. Now we have answer to 85% to deal with it, we will have to 95%. Because we work very quickly to this. The next thing, the next lesson that we should learn everyone, it's more close to competitive discuss and Draghi report, what do with economy of EU. We should be very creative and start to deregulate ourselves. We started from ourselves, something, and for example, our new approach to military procurement, very liberal. We send 20% of procurement to local army pieces, brigade, battalion, so on, and on their level, they can choose both unclassified things and both unclassified things. It means that 20% of all this procurement, that you can imagine what is the procurement in time of war in army, it's a lot of money. 20% of this lot of money, we use in experimental way. In result of this, army send feedback to ministry, what's the best choices, what's the best drones, what's the best anti-drone warfares, what's the best mark, what's the best productors. And after that, we have all time widen our list of productors. It's liberal 100% approach, you know. But let's do this approach in economy. In this hard discussion, what we to do with automotive production, for example. Why the regulation is so difficult for European campaigns? To be so hard and so difficult, to cheapest and easiest buy something Chinese, all time productions like wired and some maintenance equipment and so on. But we can product these things in Ukraine, in Europe and Ukraine also. We're one of the biggest producers of wired, for example, in time of war also. Next things, what I want to share, it's about this geopolitical situation, and it's answer of your another question about what make our closer for this for years. And I'm very agree, Mr. Prime Minister, that large Europe, more safety Europe. It's about eastern flank that we keep with you together, from north and to south with Romania and Ukraine part of it. But it's also about single market in time of demographic crisis. We all understand that so large single market we will have, so strongest economy we will have also together. An economical and security reason, it's enough argues to overcome with political and some ideological thing from some countries, not we don't like to see these countries, we have historical discussions. Historical discussions will leave us in history, what I want to say. But discussions about future can make us closer to the future. And we need to be very accurate in this. All this, I think I will finalize by one motto, one idea. Let's to be in 2026, not in 26. Because sometimes it's looked like starting of 2000s. We have Euro, French win, and you know, it's good time. I was 20 years youngest. We can discuss about the music, I don't know. We liked in Ukraine Black Eyed Peas for this time and Muse, but you know, now 2026, it's time to be more openly, more creatively, more faster, more fast reaction and so on. And I think liberals can, because I don't want to compare with other big parties, it's, you know, things to journalists, but I think we can, because we are more powerful of real values, of real willing of active people, entrepreneurs, youngsters, students, young families, young eldest, how would say now. And I think it's all good, good team to do it together. Thank you.
So, so more Taylor Swift, less Britney Spears is what I hear. So we've already heard now these are very complicated times maybe, and difficult times, and there is high expectation and high hope for European leadership. And we just heard there's even higher expectations from the Irish leadership. So not just, I haven't been spending much time in the halls of the European Parliament lately, because I had a little project of my own to attend to here in Austria, but it's still, even not being there, it's almost physical how you can feel this expectation and this hope that there is for the Irish presidency. And we've already heard there's so much to work on, so how will you do it? But in all seriousness, how can the Irish presidency move forward with all these projects that we've just heard about that should have been done years ago and really need to get done now?
Well, thanks very much, Anna, and thanks indeed, Neos, Beata, our hosts today. It's really, really great to be here with ALDE. It's great to be here as Minister for European Affairs and Defence of Ireland with our fellow family members in the ALDE group, and it's particularly important this year for Fianna Fáil because we've just celebrated our 100th anniversary, and it's and we really, really feel the moment. And yes, we have worked really hard. I mean, I didn't really want to be building up expectations because a lot is expected. But I can say already, actually, when I look at what's happening in the Council, I think we're already pretty much guaranteed more intergovernmental conferences this month for Ukraine, Moldova, Montenegro and Albania. And there's a little bit more work to do next week at Coreper in Brussels. But already we see momentum to follow on from the momentum last month. And it's something that we have really put a strong effort into. President Zelensky was in Dublin on Wednesday for the opening ceremony of our presidency. And again, it was a sign that enlargement is important for Ireland. And we've always said that. We feel that we've seen the transformation that we have achieved in Ireland through joining the European Union, and we don't want to pull the ladder down. We want others to be able to join the European Union, and we've made that a big priority. And as I said already, we've had a lot of work done in the Council to make sure that we've intergovernmental conferences taking place this month. And we want to continue to build that momentum during our presidency. So we think there's a real chance to finish the negotiations with Montenegro and to significantly advance Albania, Ukraine and Moldova. And who knows, maybe our party colleague Stürgkh in Iceland, in Reykjavik, will have a successful referendum in August, which will be really good for Ireland too, because of course they're our cousins, but Iceland suspended their negotiations during our last presidency, so it would be, yeah. So now you've got ALDE in charge, maybe we have a better chance. But they have difficulties up there in Iceland, and you know that there's a lot of misinformation in that referendum. We need to leave it to the Icelandic people to make the decision. But all I can say from an Irish point of view, our sovereignty has been enhanced by joining the European Union. Our language and culture has been enhanced by joining the European Union. And I can say that for definite because, as Valerie and Anna and everybody knows, we can use the Irish language in the European Parliament, in the Council. And as a child, it was never possible to imagine that we could use the Irish language in an international context. And that is what the European Union has done for the diversity of all of our peoples around the European Union. So, on a big priority for us this year, of course, is the multi-annual financial framework, and that is a tricky one, and that is where the deep breaths are taken. So look, what we will do is we'll have discussions. I'll probably talk to Beata, maybe Oana on it today, just briefly, but we will have discussions this month and in September with our counterparts to try to see where we can find common ground among the different opinions around the table of the council. We'll try to look at own resources as well to see what's possible, what would bring in money, and what could achieve agreement among the member states. And that's all. Each of those two things is a big challenge. We will absolutely engage with the European Parliament on a regular basis to update them as to what's happening. I think that's important. I think that on the files that come out of the MFF, I think it is important to start the work on those even before the leaders, like Prime Minister Michal here, make their final agreement. But the Irish presidency hopes to have something ready to send to you and to my leader, Michal Martin, sometime around the end of October or mid-October, so that you can have your discussions then. But I think it is important. First of all, there will be people waiting on European funds in every member state, even contributor countries like Ireland. But secondly as well, I think it is important to close the long-term budget negotiations to show that we have geopolitical credibility, that we can do things within our own system and get our own house in order before we go out to the wider world. Just if I may speak briefly on the competitiveness agenda. That's obviously a big part of our agenda. Our agenda, by the way, is competitiveness, values and security. But on competitiveness, we've had the Let and Draghi reports. Now we have, I suppose, the roadmap for the single market, the One Europe, One Market roadmap that the leaders have agreed with the Parliament, with the Council and the Commission. And we've been given a lot of targets for that in that roadmap to complete during our presidency. It's quite challenging to say the least, and it's not all on us, but we want to do as much as possible, and we realise that we have to work among the member states and with the Parliament and with the Commission to get as much of that done as possible. But this is a big moment for us. I remember when the single market of the European Union first came into being, because why? In Ireland there was a referendum. It was the first referendum we had after joining the European Union. A guy went to court and said that the Constitution didn't permit us to sign it, so we had to have a referendum. But it's the first vote I remember my parents taking. And I remember my parents drove down to the voting station, and there was vote yes for the single market posters in different places. And I remember asking my dad, I was only a kid, why are we voting yes? Because they were voting yes. Well, he said, I want to make sure that you kids have jobs in the future, or you kids will have jobs when you grow up. Because at the time in Ireland, in the late 1980s, it was a very difficult place, not a huge amount of hope. But I can tell you two things. The single market transformed our economy, as it did the European economy, and also in Ireland as well, it brought down barriers between North and South, because Northern Ireland was in the European Union at the time, and was a major help to the peace process. Major help. Probably the most significant moment was actually the single market of the European Union, where goods could start flowing freely. So we think that if we can make as much progress as possible on the one market roadmap, we can have another generational moment in the single market and secure all of our economic futures. So that's a brief summary of some of the things we'll do. But already Valerie and our colleagues have been on to me with lots of projects for this week and next month. So it's great to have the colleagues in the Parliament so active, and that we all know each other as well, and we can get progress on files that matter to people. Thank you.
Yeah. Certainly very busy weeks and months ahead for you, and I guess some months with lots of time spent in quite soulless rooms in the Council and in the Parliament, but we'll make them fun anyways. But we are faced as Europe with mainly autocracies. Our enemies, Russia, maybe not enemy, but, you know, China. But even when I look at the US now, someone who I would say is not necessarily a close friend anymore, we see ever more move towards autocratic leadership, the way that decisions are taken. And those decisions are taken very quickly, especially when I look at the US with those, with Donald Trump pretty much just ruling by decree. But it gets things done very quickly. Now, we've already discussed a lot of projects that are ahead of us, but if we're being honest with ourselves and not just talking about how great Europe is, then those exact projects we have talked about for the last 5, 10 years. I mean, we're still talking about the single market, completing it. We're talking about, you know, financial market finally being one. So Europe is, or feels a little bit slow maybe sometimes. Democracy feels a little bit slow sometimes. Can we keep up with those autocracies? Can we make a move and still be leaders in this world? How will Europe manage that, Mr. Prime Minister?
Oh, that's a modest question.
1 minute, please.
I would start with that, but with this company probably we'll manage everything. So I really do believe in liberals. Because even in this panel, Romania has, for example, shot down one drone in Estonian airspace. Thank you for that. This was only a couple of weeks ago, and it is not easy thing to do. Only second time in NATO's history it was done. Ukrainians are fighting for our freedom. Irish, they deliver us everything we do. MFF will come and everything else. No low expectations. So this is the company that gets everything done. But I would say that we were talking to Valery and Svenja earlier also that there's a big question with liberals, because we can see, as you said, that this kind of populists, they have a short and likable answer to almost everything. Usually it's wrong, but it's likable, like it's usually the case. And this kind of world we're living in usually likes, this kind of algorithm likes this kind of short and popular answers and more polarizing answers. But coming to liberals, I would say that our mission is still there, and this mission is more important than ever. Our credo has been always security and prosperity and liberty, values on which Europe based. Because we are here, we are doing everything we can because of the liberal democracy. Not because of the autocracies, not because of the simple answers, because of the convenience to do something. This is because of the liberal democracy, not against it. And the guys you are mentioning, for example, who are giving short answers and easy decisions from only the top, these are fighting against liberal democracy. Liberal democracy might be slow, yes, it is. It is boring. It is. It is heavy probably in European Parliament. Good luck with that. So, but it is the best way to do things. So everybody's involved, and you can still keep the values Europe is based on. Enlargement. That is also the value of European Union, because I do not believe that we should enlarge only because of this kind of interest in economy. This is also a question of values. For example, I still see people around Europe that do not understand, okay, this is already a minority, hopefully, that Ukraine is fighting for us, not for only themselves. They are fighting for us, because the question of kilometers, I was yesterday in Berlin, today in Vienna, the question of kilometers does not count. They will come, Russians, they will come for your data, your prescription data, they will ask who are your friends, who are you meeting. That will happen, and all the autocracies will be in your computers and everywhere already, another level, hybrid level, so on. So they are fighting for us. They're fighting for liberal democracy, and that is a good thing. So the good question is how to answer that. I would say that my answer would be that we should be a little bit more bolder in certain missions and certain messages, because if you would take away liberal democracy and you would look at the European Parliament and political parties and these kind of short answers, you would have Europe that is split up. Everybody would stand by themselves. and we would require visas from each other. We won't be able to help Ukraine. Nothing would happen. We wouldn't be traveling and talking this way. So the base is liberal democracy and values and security and prosperity based on it. And liberals give that answer, not anybody else. So we should be very bold on answers, on AI, on different things, also on free market and so on. So this is probably the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's not often that we get such a high-level panel, so I'm sure you all have questions too, and I want to give you time to think about now. I will open the floor in just a few minutes. Also to the organization team, I've decided that since we started 10 minutes late, we will also run 10 minutes late. Just to follow up on that maybe, because you mentioned the values that Europe is based on and our lives are based on, but sometimes when I look at media commentary, when I spend time on the street talking to people, it feels like those values are, on the one hand, very much taken for granted and not necessarily seen as something that you have to fight for or something that you even have to work for. It's just there. Sometimes it feels like maybe the European people have become a little bit complacent. We want to be the best, be the strongest, but not necessarily want to work for it. We want those simple answers that the populists give us. So how can we not just convince the people in this room, because we're all convinced of Europe, we're all convinced of liberal democracy, but how can we convince the people out there? Because right now, still, yes, we have some countries where liberals are strong, and that's great, and we're so happy for it, but there's so many countries where we're struggling because the far-right populists are leading every single way. So how can we convince the people, again, of this idea of liberal democracy and the idea of Europe? Oana, if you may, and then...
Yeah, sure, the easy questions go to Romania. No, but thank you, and it is a tremendously important question. But first of all, I think it's rightfully so that people are worried about their own quality of life, about their own safety, about what's happening in their daily life at the family level, at the neighborhood level, at the business level. And I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge that as being something extremely clear in a democracy and legitimate. And start from that. And I don't mean change the platforms in any way. I do mean that everything that is now growing in Europe that makes us strong is based on liberal values, actually. I don't think there's a challenge around liberal values, but rather around how much people feel represented by liberal politicians, which is a different conversation altogether. They take the values as being at the core of what we have in society as a given. It's almost like air and water. So I think the challenge or the ambition ahead is to clarify the need for representation, and that the idea that money follow ideas. That the conversation we have on the MFF, and I've spoken about Thomas actually yesterday in Bucharest when we launched the priorities of the presidencies, money follow ideas, and therefore I think that's why it's very important. So that's one. And secondly, I think when we speak about Europe as a whole, what's happening in Romania, and I've seen this in many other countries, is they take the extreme right politicians, they take everything we receive from Europe as a given, as rightfully so belonging to the people, to the country, and then just talk about everything else that might not be working or that is challenged. And I think here the key to that is to position Europe as not something far away, built on the liberal values, but rather something where each country is a co-decider, and I think here the presidency will hold a role in that direction. But also, to be very honest, I think when we speak about what US is doing or what US leadership is doing, of course we sometimes do that from the differences that we see, from the differences of the way we treat our democracies and values. But we also think about that often and do that quite often because US matters so much. And it's 4th of July today, also a good moment to say happy birthday to 150 years of independence. And it is an amazing country because it's based on amazing ideas, but because those ideas have created direct power, whether we like it or not, whether we're comfortable or not with it. We do have our democracies now dependent on US online platforms. We do have our payments now in a large proportion dependent on US systems. a lot of our systems, and it is the strongest trade relationship in the world. And we are facing now the challenge to redefine NATO itself into NATO 3.0, because again, the security architecture we've created is also still heavily dependent on the transatlantic relationship, and we're moving into a more autonomous, strategic autonomy place for Europe and each country. But I think as we do that, we need to talk about the power we need to collectively create together from a liberal perspective, and the way citizens feel that that power is connected to their daily life, their daily income, their daily security.
You want to add anything?
I'm sorry, I realize there's one last thing I want to say shortly, and I've said this to the Security Council at UN 2 weeks ago, and I really, really need to say it, is that in terms of liberal values and in terms of the wars that are being thought around us, we've spoken a lot and we invest a lot in how we protect the water, how we protect the air, how we protect the land. But there is a challenge, and I think here liberal politicians are absolutely needed, and the needed leadership for that is to protect the truth, because there is a war against the truth. And here I think there are other politicians and other political movements that shy away from that battle, whereas we're being in the center of it and leading the way to protect the truth, and therefore our democracies with it.
Thank you so much. Oleksandr, you want to
Yeah,
add
I'm very shortly, because, we can, from Ukraine, talk a lot of this, because we haven't election because of wars. That's why for us very simple to advise you how to make elections. So, yes. But what I want to share, my feelings that we need to stop justify. It's, now this discuss looks like all centrist agenda and liberals and EPP, so on, SD particularly. We all time justifying before this far rights and their voters. We should be tolerant, we are liberals, okay, let's remember who we are. We should to be tolerant for them and to, perceive them, to understand that this population, lots of people, 30-20%, I don't know, in some country, real 30% of population, they have this willing, they have this necessary, they have these deficits. And we should, to be very friendly how to deal with it. And not to justify that, yes, we are good, no, so on. Let's be more strict in this. And the second one that I share all the time with all of us, we need to use a toolkit, because we are very accurate in these social networks. Let's be more polite, let's be more modest. No, let's try use, while you don't forbid TikTok, let's use TikTok, okay. While you will forbid it, okay, it will be next step. But now it's like in Ukraine, we also have this problem. We also have something like far rights, okay. And they use all channels possible, and we should use also these channels to deliver our point of view, to deliver our truth in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. So while I still have about 1,000 questions, I'm sure you do too, and I want to give you the opportunity. So if you have a question, maybe just raise your hand. And oh, okay, people have already, I love that this is the liberal initiative, right? People have just started queuing up next to the microphone. Not everyone, I think, was aware of this, so I will give maybe 2 questions to that microphone, but then also take one from the floor, because not everyone was aware of the microphone being there. Avir, please go ahead.
Good morning, dear liberal friends. Being a Swede, of course, I'm starting a queuing system. I mean, that's just basically in my DNA. Thank you so much for this very interesting conversation. And Oana, I think that the conversation that you started about whether the liberals are or our voters, our people, citizens are feeling represented by the liberals, that is actually the real important conversation that we should have. But I have a question to the incoming Irish presidency. There are a lot of talks about the liberal values and fluff around it. Almost no concrete proposals about how to actually make them a reality. And I would like to pick your brain about very concrete ideas that we have to defend these liberal values, such as gender equality, but also impartiality and effectiveness of the official development aid of the EU, and earmarking this money, be it in gender targets, being in having it, gender mainstreaming in the upcoming MFF discussions. How are your thoughts about that? And this would be an amazing tool to use to actually defend liberal values. Thank you.
And while it was a joke earlier, since you're all excellent speakers and we all know the masterclass of good public speaking is keeping short, so maybe in a minute and a half.
And as we, wish our American friends a happy birthday, remember the Gettysburg Address, I think, was 273 words, so brevity, shortness is always better, I think. Just on development aid in general, I will speak. Obviously, this is something that the Irish government and Fianna Fáil has been to the fore, and if I might remember our colleague Barry Andrews, MEP, whose father is being buried as we speak in Dublin, both Barry and his father have been incredible champions of development assistance over many decades. It's a great family tradition in the Andrews family, and I sympathise with them. But can I say that from an Irish government point of view, we have not reduced our development aid, we have increased it actually, and I think this is something we will be working hard around the table on the MFF on. I think it is important that the European Union not only protects our own citizens, but shows the example of democracy around the world and continues to support those who are poorer than us, because of course that is also really, really important, not just for them, but for us as well, if we're actually truthful about it.
Wow, thank you so much. And if the questions can keep short too, then we can get more done. So maybe just briefly introduce yourself before you pose your question.
Andrei Tater, Limerick. My question would be continuation of the previous one about the protecting liberal values, as we think, including during the wartime. So in Ukraine, we know there was a discussion about civic partnerships, and for several times we have seen unclear answers to our questions. You have said that this is LGBT ideology, which is obviously a propaganda. You said that Moscow is pushing forward its misinformation about it, but we know about the problems with Kyiv Pride, especially this year, that they're under attack, and they don't have political protection as we would expect it to be, as protecting liberal values. Do you think that this is, and even within Limerick, we think it's not time for it. Do you think this is really not time, that liberalism can wait? Or is liberalism compatible during the martial law? Or we should always not forget about such difficult, complicated questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, big question.
Yes. We had physical protect of Pride, not only political. It was protected by several thousand of policemen to avoid any provocation and so on. We have in parallel Pride for, I don't know, family values and called, but it started from people with who violate LGBTQI symbolic, and they were, how would say, they had penalty from police about it. They had this. We have this investigation because by our legislation, it's violate of, freedom of speech, and it's like hate speech in our legislation. We have a discussion. You're very right. It's discussion. It's not 100% in favor, 100% again. And I think my feeling, we can share pooling from different countries, from Central Eastern Europe, but I think our perception in Ukraine moderate like with our neighbors, despite of Poland maybe, but all more southern neighbors, in Hungary and Slovakia, Romania, Bulgaria. We are not something, different in this case. That's why we need to promote this discussion. We need to share these arguments. We have a lot of shifting, I would say, to more liberal way in time of war It's fact because lot of LGBTQI families in army, and they openly show it, and they part of this advocacy space about civil partnership, because we have a lot of situation. It's individual cases, but it's very symbolic. Like, for example, one sex family, and one of the people soldier, and he injured, and by our rules, his partner can't take care about him in hospital, for example. And such cases become vocal, and of course, we all discuss about it. But we need to understand that we also have far rights, and of course, these far rights will use it for their political agenda right now. I'm personally one of the member of case of attack for rights for me in political, but also more physical way, because I had some threats from far rights about myself and my colleague from Golos Party, for example. She also liberal family. We sent some resolution, some letter, like MPs, to police, not to investigate, but to observe situation with vocalized threats to Muslims on one of such far rights meetings. It was meetings against migrants. And we asked police to inspect what this was. Or it was hate speech or not, okay, we're okay in this. But these far rights, and also particularly veterans, attacked me in social networks and to private messages with threats that I'm not right to even to raise this issue. Can you imagine what the discussion we'll have after war in Ukraine? That's why, of course, we need to make this discussion. We will do this discussion. We have particular discussion about civil code. You maybe know about it. But after our speaker, Stefanchuk, and after of the civil code reform, he had meetings with the LGBTQI community, and he will have also in the future to find consensus, to find final drafts that can be developed for these values in Ukraine also.
Thank you. So depending on the speakers, we'll have time for one or two more questions. Please.
Quickly, the single issue that is going to transform our daily lives today up to the future is AI. Now, if you focus on everything, you don't focus on anything, right? And so my question to Thomas would be, would it make sense in your presidency to take a big chunk of all of these investment funds being distributed over so many things and just make an AI investment fund and hit on it in order to become a geoeconomic and geopolitical power in the world? Because this is going to determine politics and economics in the near future. So an AI investment fund, we have best practices in Europe. Estonia is a very good example. Second, quick question. This is the former president of the Council of Europe. When the hell is EU going to get into the European Convention of Human Rights? Because then we create one single Europe on values. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, on that question, I think it's before the Court of Justice, I think, to see whether the EU can sign up to the European Convention on Human Rights. But
that's about 15 years that they are doing.
Yeah, it's something that Ireland supports for sure, and we've worked for it. Just on AI, look, it's a good investment. I haven't given specific thought to that, but I can say that during our presidency, we will have a very high-level AI summit. And if anybody is, any of the political leaders are interested in attending, we'd be certainly interested in having you. That will have leaders from around the European Union and business from around the world as well. And I will look at all aspects of AI, actually. So it's certainly from a European point of view, investing in AI would be very important. Of course, we are on some of the steps on the single market roadmap. We are obviously with the Savings and Investment Union, we're looking to keep more money within the European Union, and presumably some of that could go to AI. But yes, we have a challenge because there's a huge investment in the US and in China, and we certainly need to do our own.
If we keep it this short, we might even get two more questions in. Raquel.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the speakers. Good morning, everyone. I'm Raquel Garcia Hermida van der Walle. I'm an MEP for D66, and I have a question about the MFF. And like Thomas, like Oana, like Kristen, I'm from Spain originally. I've seen my country of birth being transformed completely by the European Union. I hope later we can say the same about Ukraine. And now we see that, of course, we have to invest very smartly. And my question is, how are we going to combine not leaving any region behind, not leaving anyone behind, with that investment agenda that has been a priority of the Irish presidency? Thank you.
Is this to everyone?
Well, particularly to Oana and maybe to Thomas from the presidency. Thank you.
So, thank you for the question. In Romania's case, since the 90s to today, we have increased our economy 10 times. Since we joined the European Union in 2007, we have tripled our economy. Now, that is directed with investments and European funding for one, but it has directly contributed as well back to the European economy. We have the largest working force, for example, that has the highest level of mobility inside the single market and has contributed to all economies. I said that from a philosophical perspective, in the sense where even funds on cohesion, for example, or agriculture, or social services, healthcare, education, come back into the competitiveness and the growth of the economy. So that's one thing. But then the other, from our perspective, is that investments need to be focused, but in a way where we answer to the ambition of having European actors that are stronger on the global market, and I think that's going to speak to our geopolitical influence as well, and frankly, negotiation in the security architecture, capacity to protect the liberal values, and so on. But in a way where we do not forget where innovation comes in Europe, and it comes from all geographies, and it comes from small and medium enterprises as well, and that needs to be factored into the investment architecture.
Thank you so much.
Well, on the MFF, I mean, I can say from an Irish point of view, we've been transformed. When we joined the EU in 1973, we had 1 million people working in the economy. We now have 2.8 million people working in the country. So it really has been a huge transformation. And EU funds have really helped in terms of infrastructure. And I think that there's still huge scope for that, even with the MFF that we will hopefully agree this year. But I can also say from an Irish point of view that internally, we helped to direct some of the investment that was coming into the country around the country. So when I look at some of the, where David Burke is from in County Galway, some really isolated rural areas of some of the strongest chip manufacturing in the world, chip research in the world. We look at Cork yesterday, the second city, where the Commission visited yesterday with the Taoiseach, where the Taoiseach's from. We've incredible investment there. So the government has had a policy over the years of trying to spread investment around the country, and European investment has been important in terms of getting the roads and the transport networks to other parts of the country. But I think there's a role for the European Union in making sure that we support regional development, but also for national governments as well to work hard to attract that investment and to direct it as best they can around the country.
Thank you so much. I'm getting signals that I don't actually have the power to decide when this panel ends. So any questioners left, maybe run up here and try to catch everyone before we leave. So I'll just ask with one sentence, what is, you would say, and it's one question to everyone, being very aware that Ukraine is not yet part of the EU, but I do believe the European elections coming up in 3 years are going to be very important. So what do you think is the one thing that this entire family needs to do over the next 3 years to make sure that we win in 2029? And I'll start from this side and just go over to this side.
To add to your question.
I'm so sorry, but I'm being told I cannot take any questions anymore.
This is an affront
I'm
to the founder, Secretary General of this venture. I'm one of the few surviving people having been here 50 years ago. And I'm absolutely...
I'm looking at people with more power than me who are looking away. Okay, well, go ahead.
I'm glad that I see 5 people in the panel who weren't around 50 years ago. So, welcome. And especially to Thomas Byrne, Fianna, Fáil, I was director of the cabinet of the President of the European Parliament. Michal signed the document to join the Liberals, and now they finally did. Welcome. My remark is that I very seldomly see all the Liberals all over Europe acting together and confronting the populists with their failure. They failed in Hungary, they failed in Holland, they failed in Italy. And you should join your efforts in the Parliament, in the Council, in the Commission to confront populism, that it's not an answer, and that in the end, liberalism will win. And you should join up more than you do now.
Thank you.
Well, can I thank you for mentioning Michael Yeats, one of our first MEPs. His father was the famous poet William Butler Yeats, and Michael was one of our Fianna Fáil's founding MEPs with my cousin Michael Hilliard, who was a revolutionary at the age of 13 in the Irish War of Independence, and he became an MEP much later in life. Anyway, one thing you could do. Fianna Fáil lost an election really badly in 2011. Michal Martin had patience. He campaigned, I would say, every single day between 2011 and 2020 when we got back into power. Every single day, and I see Claire Collar-Malloy, he campaigned with her, he campaigned with me, he campaigned with Timmy, all of our candidates. He went out and met people all the time and explained our values, and not just did the populists lose in those countries you mentioned, they lost in Ireland at the last election as well. The first opposition party ever to go down in from one election to the other. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So talk to people. I think that's a good one. And meet them where they are. What would you say? The one thing.
One thing. I would say also the same, that the ideas and the way you talk about it should be relatable, because the liberals' problem usually is that we tend to keep to the facts, which are very rational, but they are not the stories and not catchy. Because the fact, for example, that we have defense expenditure 5% is a nice fact. But if it means that you can have a family in Estonia or Baltics or Poland or Romania, that is something else. So you have to tell stories, you have to keep it down to earth, talk to people, as said, and also be more bolder, as already mentioned, with the 50 years, because I see that liberals are, how to say, decent people. But today's media world is not about decent people. If you want to break through, be bold. That's it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I think that's very good advice. Two more pieces of advice for the next 3 years.
Access Ukraine and you will have majority in EP.
That's a tough one to follow, but please.
Friendly neighbors. I think something that everyone in the room already knows, because you're successful politicians having won campaigns, that's why you're in the room, is that when you speak with people directly, it's not so much about the crisis in terms of budget deficits or the security crisis or even the democracy and so on. It's a crisis of belonging. I think people feel an acute need to belong. And I think at the core of the liberal values, it's actually creating the structures that allow for everyone to belong irrespective of our differences. So that's one thing that I would say in the direction of campaigning, with talking every day with people, being present. It's that people don't fall in love about abstract ideas, but they do trust people that feel them, that they can belong. And I think that's a task ahead for us.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so very much for your time, and thank you for letting us run over a little bit. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we can't wait to continue this conversation over the next years. Thank you, and have a great rest of the Congress.
Dear panelists, please stay on the stage for a group photo.